All right. Good to see everyone here today. If we can, I know it's a little warm, but if we can grab the door. Come on in, guys. All right. So we are here today to talk about public safety. Public safety is the most elemental function of government. It is the work to ensure everyone's safety is basic to all the work we do in schools and neighborhoods and economic development in the port in every corner of the city. And that's why we have focused on it right from the get-go in my time in office. We have been dedicated to constant improvement when it comes to safety in every neighborhood, not some, not just a few, but every single one. The work we've done over the years has shifted the emphasis of our efforts. We are much more data-driven than we were 15 years ago, 12 years ago. We focus on impact players, and the reason we do that is based on a sort of a fundamental axiom of public safety. In any city, a disproportionate amount of the crime and disorder is caused by a very small segment of the population. We don't do dragnets. We focus on the people we need to focus on. We've invested in plant and equipment. We built the first public safety center in the city in some 60 years, a few years ago. We're continuing today to work on building a new police headquarters. And we focused on community policing, which is an overly used term, but it's one that at its essence means that the police are there to serve the people and to connect and to know them, to understand their needs, and to be trusted by them, and through that trust to secure and maintain the legitimacy of police and, by extension, all of city government. And so we've made progress with this approach. We've made substantial progress. In the last decade, New Bedford's violent crime rate has dropped some 60%. 60%. The property crime rate has dropped some 52%. We are a far safer city than we used to be. And that progress has led to other gains, gains in economic development, improvements in our neighborhoods, and a lifting of our overall quality of life. But we are committed to constant improvement. That's why we brought in the folks at Jensen Hughes and Bob Wasserman in particular, who's here with us today, because we want to get better at what we do. Ordinarily, police departments don't open up the hood unless something bad has happened, unless there's a breakdown of sorts. Here in New Bedford, we're committed to getting better, and so we invited in Jensen Hughes to take a look at how we can do that and build on the progress that we've made. And Jensen Hughes, under Bob's leadership, has issued a report in 2023 that covers, really spans the operations of the police department in ways that the department has not been inspected in really 30 years, since the Bratton report in the mid-90s. And so those recommendations have been in the course of implementation now. There's still a lot more work to do, but we're on the right track. What we're trying to do is sustain the improvements, to build them into the culture of not just the police department of the city, so that we can have a quality of life that people can rely on and that people want to move here and be part of. Chief Oliveira, who's been the chief for the better part of the last 4 years, told me back in the beginning of the year that he was retiring, something that he had been planning to do for a few months, having sort of hit the maximum age under the pension system that we're all familiar with. And he left at the beginning of May. In the meantime, Derek Belong has really done well as the acting chief of the department, and I want to commend him. He's back there, but I want to thank Acting Chief Belong for diving into the work. You saw last week things that he was initiating, like the tour of the city for the 14 new recruits that we just got in, and he's been working really hard since then, just to keep everything going, and I really appreciate him, I need to know. But our efforts now are really to build on the foundation that we have, because there is opportunity, as I said, to sustain things, to really build a culture here that is worthy of our residents. And so thus we began a search for a new chief. And we set a high bar. The person that we wanted for this position had to be somebody who could inspire confidence and maintain the trust of the city's residents and the department's sworn and professional staff. And we wanted this chief to build a strong leadership team that would nurture a positive and accountable organizational culture. We wanted the chief to be a strategic thinker and collaborator, work with other law enforcement agencies, somebody who was data-driven and who could continue the modernization of the department, someone who understands the needs of neighborhoods, who could listen, because police have to listen. We all have to listen well and understand our residents' needs. Someone who reflects the values of the New Bedford Way, our organizational statement of values concerning integrity, accountability, innovation, continuous improvement, teamwork, and respect. These are things that we strive to uphold in the work that we do. And we wanted someone who would partner well, because the police department can't do it all alone. You need partners, you need trusted partners, you need to work together. The goal here with the search was to find the best candidate, period. Wherever that person came from. In times past, I previously appointed 3 police chiefs: David Provencher, whom I kept on from the previous administration, Joe Cadero and Paul Oliveira, all internal candidates. Each time we did not limit ourselves to internal candidates, but internal candidates were all elevated. I frankly don't care where the best person comes from. I just want the best. So that meant that we put together a rigorous process, one that people can look at later and say, you know, that was a credible look at exactly what the mayor wanted, which is the best candidate. We were facilitated in that effort again by Bob Wasserman and Bruce McNamee at Jensen Hughes, who did a terrific job running the search, a very credible national search that was posted in all the places where people who are in the police business look. And then we had a screening committee to vet all the candidates. And I just want to say that this committee was just outstanding. It was composed of folks from a diversity of backgrounds and perspectives, people with a whole lot of knowledge, and who looked at things in different ways, but who had in common, I would say, a real deep and abiding care for the city and getting the process right. And it was chaired by Philip Raposa, who's joining us today. Judge Raposa is the retired Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Appeals Court and a New Bedford native. I want to thank all of the who just brought so much credibility to the effort. I really want to thank Judge Raposa for what you brought to the table. It really made a difference. I want to thank personally all the other members of this committee, which met over in our new municipal building right here on Pleasant Street for hours on end, for several nights, interviewing candidates and doing a very, very professional job. When you do these things, it's a two-way conversation. It is the candidate selling himself or herself to the city, to the employer, prospective employer, and the other way around. We want to be seen by candidates as a place that's squared away and a place where you want to work, where things are professionally run. And I think this process really showed that. So I want to thank all of the members of the committee. Chris Bator, my former colleague at the U.S. Attorney's Office, who's here with us today. Thanks for joining, Chris. At-large Councilor Brian Gomes, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Margarita Graham, the president of Reliable Bus, who's here with us today. Thank you for joining. Renee Ledbetter, the president of the New Bedford chapter of the NAACP, Sean Oliver, the Ward 3 City Councilor, Kathy O'Toole, the former police commissioner in Boston and Seattle and secretary of the Executive Office of Public Safety in Massachusetts, David Reese, who's a retired police trooper in Massachusetts and a New Bedford native, and Bob Wasserman as well. Bob is the former chief of staff of the White House Office of National Drug Policy and the acting commissioner of the United Nations International Police Force in Bosnia, among many other roles over the years. And this process yielded a tremendous set of candidates, and for me to consider, finalists to consider. And so with that long wind-up, I just want to say thank you to the committee for doing a fabulous job. I am pleased to announce that today I am appointing Jason Thody as New Bedford's next police chief. Thody served as chief of the Hartford Police Department from 2019 to 2024, when he retired after nearly 30 years in that department. Chief Thody served as Hartford's chief through the challenges posed by the pandemic and its aftermath, with a focus on community policing, data-driven decision-making, and operational transparency. The Hartford Police Department, which has an authorized force of 474 sworn officers and a $53 million budget, which I'll hasten to add is significantly larger than New Bedford, although cities are similarly sized, made significant progress under the chief's leadership. So consider the following: from 2018 to 2024, a 31% drop in violent crime, a set of reform efforts that led to the Hartford Police Department's becoming the first major city in Connecticut to be accredited both by the state and nationally by the National Accrediting Agency. Both significant achievements, achievements that frankly we need to be pursuing here. He led the department through the protests in the wake of the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd. They had 199 protests in Hartford and only 2 arrests. Hartford secured the phasing out under his leadership of a 50-year-old consent decree that was put in place so that the court system could monitor the Hartford Police Department, and it was lifted because of the work that he was doing. And he instituted a series of major reforms across departments' operations to promote transparency. He reconfigured the citizen complaint process to ensure complaints were investigated thoroughly and consistently, resulting in the number of sustained complaints rising from 7% to 29%. He developed and implemented the department's body-worn and in-car camera programs. And he created a career development division, which led to increases in the recruitment of minority and female officers, all things that we prioritize here. Chief Thody began his career as a patrol officer in Hartford in 1997, and was a cadet for a year before that. He rapidly advanced through the ranks and served in a broad array of assignments, including commander of the crime scene division, the supervisor of the emergency response team, commander of accreditation, and the department's special advocate, which was a position that was responsible for prosecuting major cases of police misconduct. He has done everything that police officers could conceivably be assigned to do. He has led well and produced significant results. His record, frankly, speaks for itself, and he is well equipped to take the helm here in New Bedford. And so I am pleased to introduce to you for the first time the new Chief of Police for the City of New Bedford, Jason Thody.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be here today. I apologize if I have some notes here, but I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I want to first extend my heartfelt thanks to Mayor Mitchell and the entire search committee. Their trust and confidence in selecting me for this incredible opportunity is amazing. This process was an impressive one. It was a thorough, thoughtful process, It was apparent to me as going through this process from the very beginning that it was important to everybody involved that they get the right candidate. And I am honored and humbled to be that person. After retiring almost a year ago, I've been on the lookout for an opportunity to continue to serve this great, noble profession. But none of the opportunities really spoke to me. None of them were presented the challenges that I was looking for until this one. My wife and I visited New Bedford very early on in the process, and well before I was being evaluated for this role, my wife and I were evaluating New Bedford, and she is a much harsher critic than I, but we immediately fell in love with the city. The rich history, the pride, the high expectations of leadership that the community has were all extremely impressive. I also conducted some extensive research, as much as I could, into the police department and found it comprised of dedicated professionals that are striving to improve and police a community that many of them reside in, which is extremely noble. It's clear that over the last few years, significant investments have been made to improve the department, and the results are showing in a safer New Bedford. Bringing in Jensen and Hughes and 21 CP Solutions is a testament to the commitment the city and department leadership have to enhancing and strengthening the police departments and the pursuit of excellence in policing. As a career law enforcement leader, I've always believed that public safety is a shared responsibility, one built on mutual respect, accountability, and trust between the police department and the community it serves. I've seen that firsthand. When we listen, engage, and lead with empathy, we build stronger, safer neighborhoods. Everyone who lives, works in, and visits New Bedford has a role to play in keeping it safe and vibrant. And building trust with those individuals and partners with those individuals is a priority for me. I will work every day to be present, honest, and transparent for the community and the police officers that I serve. I come to New Bedford with a deep understanding of the complexities of modern law enforcement. These are challenges that require both courage and innovation. And I'm ready to meet this moment with integrity and a vision, a clear vision for progress. To the officers of the New Bedford Police Department, I pledge to lead you with clarity, support, and purpose. I know the demands of this profession, and I will work every day to ensure you're respected, well-trained, well-equipped, safe, and are able to succeed in your mission. To the residents of New Bedford, I want you to see your police department as a partner, one that protects with honor and serves with heart. I pledge to be present in your neighborhoods, responsive to your concerns, and open to your ideas. I promise to listen, engage, and bring relentless attention to the things that matter most to the people of New Bedford. I want to give a special thanks to my wife, Vicki, as I mentioned, for her support and participation in this journey. We were going to be uprooting and moving to a new home, and we're looking very much forward to that, but it's a lot to ask. And being a chief sometimes is a lot to ask of a partner, so I want to make sure I thank her. Being a chief is not just a job for me, it really is a lifelong passion. This career path started long before my resume indicates. I started as a police explorer in Middletown when I was 14 years old. I always knew that law enforcement was for me, and it's been a lifelong passion. And I look forward to sharing that passion with everyone here in New Bedford. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. I want to recognize Lorenzo Gonzalez, the head of the president of the New Bedford Police Union, who's with us today, as well as Assistant Deputy Chief Scott Carolla as well. And I want to thank everybody for their efforts and again in making this day possible. It was a tremendous process and one that residents of the city can be proud of. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
Mayor, you spoke a lot about the significance of having a search committee and making this decision. And you also alluded to the fact that a lot of times you form a committee when you're looking at some under the hood issues. I know the Boston Globe put out a report making some fairly serious allegations against the previous chief and the department in the past. How much did that factor into making this decision here?
So the decision on whom to hire as chief was done strictly on who would be the best person to lead the department. It isn't a response to any media reports or anything like that. If I were in that business, we would be whipsawed every single day. No, we put out a job posting that listed the criteria, ones that I summarized in my remarks, and we wanted somebody who satisfied those criteria, someone who was capable of building teams, someone who would bring credibility to the department, someone who was transparent, someone who would listen to residents, someone who was sophisticated with data and who was committed to constant improvement. That's what we're looking at, and that's what we got in Chief Thody.
And one for the chief here, if I could.
Yeah.
First off, congratulations, Chief,
Thank
on the
you.
new gig.
Thank you.
I know back in Hartford, there was a no confidence vote by the union leadership. How do you plan to get the New Bedford department here to rally behind you?
Yeah, listen, that was a tough time. I mean, stepping into chiefing in 2019, 2020, I think, was difficult, right? We had the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, and with that, we had police accountability measures that the legislature took. I think that created frustration in our police officers and in police officers across the country. We saw people resigning from the job because of it. And, really, I had a good relationship with the union president at the time. And I think he was under a tremendous amount of pressure to make the officers feel supported. And really what that vote came down to were changes that we were making in the police department, as a result of what the community was asking us to do. That is who, as the mayor said earlier, that's who we answer to, right? And those were some tough decisions, and change, they say in policing, the only thing that cops fear more than change is when things stay the same. And some of those changes were tough. And, after, talking with my staff and talking with our officers, they were necessary. So we stood by those changes, and unfortunately, it culminated in a vote of no confidence. But as my statements after that, I was doubled down on my commitment to the officers and to the community and to everything that we were doing.
Chief Thody, my name's Anastasia. Congratulations.
Hi, thank you.
Jensen Hughes is here, and they've been mentioned several times. In 2023, they recommended, how to improve the department. This includes standardizing discipline and, reinforcing the internal affairs policy so that, the investigations are closed in a timely manner. And currently, the internal affairs unit is being reviewed by 21 CPs. So what have you learned about the department's internal affairs unit, and how do you plan to standardize discipline such that it's fair and consistent when officers do engage in misconduct?
Absolutely. So being able to read the 2023 Jensen and Hughes report was a big plus. I've been with Hartford was with Hartford for 28 years. So I was kind of new to the game of applying for a job outside. But being able to read that was really informative about where the New Bedford Police Department was. And there is a strong foundation there. But there are, there's another report coming about the internal affairs process, the stuff that's outlined in the 2023 report. I think consistency and discipline is really what's important. As the mayor said, when I took over as an assistant chief, I oversaw professional standards, right? And there were things that I found in our practices in professional standards in Hartford that would not elicit trust from the community. Investigations took too long. We oftentimes weren't looking as in depth to these investigations as we should be looking. And we had open conversations. We also brought in experts to see how to do it right. And ultimately, we righted that ship and we got it right. And I think that's what we'll do here in New Bedford too. There's some great recommendations from the 2023 report. I anticipate there'll be more recommendations coming soon, but things like having a code of conduct that tell you, what discipline an officer would face if found, guilty of certain misconduct is the kind of thing that instills both confidence from the community, but also from the department. I think officers want to know, what will happen. There has to be some predictability. Otherwise, there's stress, and otherwise, it's a tougher work environment to work in. So, getting under the hood will take some time, but using those reports as a guide and some of the corrections and advancements that we made in Hartford, I think we're in a good position to work on that.
And as a follow-up, how do you plan to spend your first month on the job? I mean, what are the areas you're going to be focused on, and then even longer term in terms of improvements and reforms to the department?
So a couple things, right? And they have to happen simultaneously. It's hard to say that there's one priority when you come in. First and foremost, getting to know the department. I'm going to start doing some of that today, and I'll be back to do that in the weeks to come. And getting to know the community, getting to know the businesses, getting to know the other department heads. Had a good opportunity to meet with some folks already. But really just making myself available, making sure people have my number, making sure people know how to get a hold of me, and starting to, to shed the stigma of being an outsider. I want to be an insider as soon as possible. So that's really kind of priority one with the community, with New Bedford leadership, with elected officials, with businesses, and with the department and the officers in the department. At the same time, we're coming into summer. If anyone noticed, it's warm today, right? So any city starts to get busier when the temperatures start to go up. So I think working with the great command staff that's in place there now and the supervisors and the leaders there, I want to make sure that we're in a good place to deal with the busier months. Some great work on getting some new officers out on the street. Anxious to hear from the union about some of the priorities that they think. So I think those priorities will be established as we really start having those conversations. So having them as soon as possible, even before the start date, is important, and that's already underway.
Chief, first and foremost, congratulations, of course, again, with these recent incidents of misconduct within the department. Public trust has taken a hit. How do you plan on bridging that gap and instilling trust from the people of New Bedford back into their police department?
Yeah, I think, transparency becomes kind of, a cliche word, but it's so incredibly important. I think where the distrust comes is not always in the action. We know people are going to make mistakes. Officers are going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? But when you don't know, how people are held accountable for those mistakes, when you don't know what the plan is to make sure those mistakes don't happen again, that's where distrust festers, right? So communication is key, and I think getting out there in the community, through I had great success in Hartford going through faith-based leaders and through city council members and community leaders to get the word out. You can't always get in front of everyone, but the grapevine's a powerful thing, and I think what I want people to know is that that the curtain's open and the lights are on here, and we may face challenges, we may face mistakes, but we will be open and honest with how we deal with those mistakes, and we'll be inclusive. Sometimes it's good to hear from people outside of the police department, and even beyond Jensen and Hughes and 21CP, but community members, what are they looking for there? But I think you have to build on that foundation of relationships and openness and transparency.
Chief, Carlos Stewart here with Bedford Live. It was stated that only 2 arrests were made during the George Floyd riots. Now, was it a failure to make arrests, or what was the cause of that?
No, so Hartford's the capital city, right? And I made it a point very early on. Our first demonstration started on a Sunday, but they kind of petered out pretty quickly. Our real first ones were on a Monday, and I went out in front of the police department. We didn't lock our front doors. We didn't put officers in riot helmets and sticks and batons and everything out there. We walked out, myself, my assistant chief, and one of the captains, and Mayor Bronin. And we had open conversations with the folks that were demonstrating. They wanted to be heard, and we listened. And within a week, we had them in my conference room, and we were talking about policy and what they wanted to see with policy changes, what they saw in our policies. Luckily, we were on the path to accreditation. Our policies were pretty good at that time, especially around use of force. And we created a dialogue where we knew these folks that were demonstrating. We closed streets for them, and we made sure that they had a safe pathway, to demonstrate. I think we could have got away with no arrests. Unfortunately,
Now, were there no crimes committed during the riots?
we had zero property damage, and I definitely wouldn't call them riots. I mean, we had demonstrations, and the police department is a very short distance to the state capitol. So they would come to the police department first, kind of muster up, and then we would march. They would march them. The officers would shut the streets down and march to the capitol. And really, these were folks that were school teachers that were off from COVID. These were people that really just wanted to be heard and see change. I acknowledge the fact that we didn't see the same type of demonstrators that maybe other cities across the country saw. We saw people that wanted to be part of a solution, But they were demanding a solution. They were demanding change. And how many times have we seen incidents happen where change is discussed and never followed through on? So I think it was about the relationships that we built. It was about the understanding of our police officers. I was very open with them too. Sometimes when you're out with demonstrators, that can not resonate great with some of your cops, right? But I explained to them that the reason that we're doing that is we want to establish these relationships, and I want to make sure that they go home safe at night too. I want to make sure they're not the ones that are getting things thrown at them and they're being disrespected. And it wasn't just me. It was the team of the command staff. It was all the officers that bought into that. And it was our demonstrators that were willing to say, if you're going to listen to us and if you're going to help us get our voice out there, then we are not going to surprise you and close, I-84 in the middle of Hartford. And that worked well. I remember the first day on Monday when one of the demonstrators yanked on the front door, thinking that it was going to be locked, and it swung open, and there was an officer behind the glass, waiting to take a complaint or whatever you needed. We didn't close down. Again, the curtains were open and the lights were on.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, two questions.
Sure.
How old are you, and why are you leaving the
It's really personal.
And why are you leaving the police department?
Although I look 30, I'm actually 49. I will be 50 this October. So yeah, that's a challenge for me to be turning 50, but I feel great. And the second one, why did I leave?
Why are you leaving the Hartford Police Department?
So I left a year ago, and really, there's a few parts of why I left. One, I did 28 years there, and I think in my time as chief there, we built a great foundation and a great team to pass the baton to. Two, the Mayor Bronin, who is the one that appointed me and hired me, chose not to run again for re-election. Him and I had a great relationship. We went through some very difficult times during COVID. I mean, COVID threw a curveball to all of us. I don't think anybody had a report or a book that you could go to say, how are we going to deal with this, right? That was a stressful time. We also, we had an in the line of duty death about a month before I got hired in 1996. And it was a foot pursuit that ended tragically with a heart attack. I wasn't there for that, and we didn't have another in the line of duty death in my entire career. In September of 2023, we lost Detective Bobby Garton, and I worked as a detective with his dad, and that hit me hard. So it was a good time for me to leave. I stayed on after my contract to make sure that we transitioned the department. My contract ended in March. I stayed on until July, August, just to give the new mayor time to get his feet under him. But I knew it was, people told me, my mentors in law enforcement always told me that you'd know when it's time, and it was a good time. I knew I didn't want to hang it up forever, but I knew that it was a good time for me to pass the baton to Hartford.
Chief Thody, there's been increased ICE operations since Trump took office, and your predecessor, Chief Oliveira, had said that the department's willing to provide information if ICE requests it, and that he won't prevent officers from volunteering information to ICE. Additionally, a few weeks ago in this room, Mayor Mitchell spoke about the lack of transparency from ICE and its operation not communicating clearly or accurately with the police department. So what is the approach you plan to take with ICE in getting transparency, but also guidance to whether or not officers can or should, provide information if they request it?
So there's two very separate pieces, in my opinion, to that question. One is a political one, right? What does the city of New Bedford, what does Mayor Mitchell expect of the police department? In Hartford, we did not communicate with ICE. We did not provide information to ICE at the direction of the administration. So there is a well documented political, hot potato portion of ICE and what ICE does, and that'll be something that the mayor and I will discuss, and that we will make clear to the police department, because the last thing I want is our officers to be kind of stuck in the middle on that. The other piece of it is you have to establish relationships, and sometimes the strongest relationships are with people that you don't necessarily agree with, and you don't necessarily align with, and you may not necessarily work with. And ICE is a good example of that. Regardless of our policy here in New Bedford on how we deal with ICE, we have to have a relationship with them. They're a law enforcement agency, and they are taking action in the city, and in part to protect our residents, in part to protect our officers from being put in bad situations. we have to have a good relationship with them, just like every other federal partner, every other federal partner that we have, from the FBI to the DEA to the U.S. Marshals, all of them. You know, in Hartford, we had certain agencies we had great relationships, and others that were strained. But those relationships are key. You have to be able to answer the phone when, you know, the supervisor from ICE calls you and says, hey, this is what we're going to do, so that you can set your community up for success. No surprises, hopefully no broken windows. You know, I followed everything going on in New Bedford ever since I was interested in coming here. So I think, you know, there's two lanes there. One, making sure we have those relationships and we know what's going on and we have clear lines of who's doing what. And two, you know, on the political side of it, you know, finding out exactly what the expectations are.
Last question for the mayor. When was the last time an external candidate was brought in to lead the police department in Bedford?
Well, it would have been Art Kelly, who also was from Connecticut. And that would have been, this is sort of a trivia question.
2005.
See, he did a lot of homework, but not all the homework on New Bedford. Tony, do you know 1993? Was it 96-ish? Rosemary Tierney was mayor, so mid-90s. So 30 years roughly, yeah.
In an ironic twist, he was number 2 for the chief's job that Pat Harnett got.
Okay.
So he was trying to come back to Hartford as chief,
That's
which I thought was an interesting
Yeah.
little piece of trivia
Yeah.
as I come here.
He still lives in the city. He lives in the South End. Yeah. So if you really need, just go knock on his door. He's on Brock Avenue and find out when did you get here. If you want to know definitively. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.